Lindsay, can you hear me? This is Rohit.
I can, yes. Excellent.
A phone call from the most notorious prison in Iran.
Can you tell me where you are?
Evin prison, the detention centre.
The line crackles. Every so often, a recorded voice cuts in.
Lindsay, you there?
A reminder that someone else is listening.
Morning, it's day 65. We're in Tehran today.
On the other end is a British woman, Lindsay Foreman. She was detained with her husband while travelling through Iran, and they were charged with espionage. She's standing in a prison corridor where she's surrounded by messages she's collected from other inmates.
Since Christmas, I've been doing messages of hope from the prisoners in Evin. So, for example, one of the first ones I can see is "Every day renew your love." So going down a very grey, grim wall is a multicoloured rainbow of messages of hope. So I get to look at that when I'm on the phone, which is nice. In the new prisoners, for example, when they arrived last night, people bring them down to see this wall of hope.
Prisoners which include people arrested during recent protests.
That are coming in as people that are speaking out against the current regime and want it to change. There's a young girl came in last night, protesting last month, 25 years, for protesting last month, and her dad, who was also protesting with her, has been sentenced to death.
She knows the risk of telling me her story and those of the people detained alongside her.
If I can do anything to change the situation here, I will do it, even if I'm at risk. So having this call, they are recorded, that's what she says.
Have there been moments where you thought you were about to be released? I understand there was one particular moment recently.
Multiple times, literally they've said the words, "You're going to be released next week, you're going to be," even when they transported us from Kerman to Tehran, we were on a commercial flight, we were wearing our own clothes, there were no handcuffs, no blindfolds.
She's describing how she was reunited with her husband, told she was being flown home, then split up again, taken to jail in Tehran.
We went down the steps, we were the last ones off the plane, and at the bottom of the steps of the plane were two cars, one for Craig, one for me, and we were separated back to blindfolds, and we ended up going back and having to start again. The most pitiful, depressing moment I think I've ever experienced, that actual belief that this is the end, only for it all to start all over again. Sorry, I've got to go.
You go. Lindsay, good to speak to you.
Okay.
Okay, this is it.
This morning, our second conversation.
The emotions are extreme, so the lows are really low.
She explains why, on her round-the-world motorcycle trip, she and Craig chose to travel to Iran.
When you're planning a route around the world, it's quite complicated. And Iran is a big section of that, So part of it was route planning, part of it was just logical route planning. I thought getting a visa was a sign of a welcome. I trusted our travel agent. We had an Iranian travel agent plotting our routes. We had a tour guide. We were escorted. Trusted the people who told us, this is possible, you can do it. I decided that, the government advice that you have to take risks sometimes. But kind of now, there's a risk of detainment, but how bad can that be? How, if we're innocent people, why would they detain us? So I naively and ignorantly thought that we'd be okay.
What is your message to the UK government?
She accepts there are limits to what the British government can do, but she believes it must do more.
I think that's the difficult part, is having to trust people aren't acting on your behalf. We don't know.
Right. I mean, there's clearly a risk in Lindsay making these phone calls to you. And it's worth really, too, to remind us of the wider context in which these calls were made, given what we've seen in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and it is worth reflecting, first of all, on that risk. It's a risk that
she has considered, a risk that members of her family have considered as well. But I think her assessment seems to be, risks are worth taking because the situation there is so perilous. And of course, against all of this is the backdrop of the military and the diplomatic situation in the region, the threat of military action by the US, the attempts at sort of de-escalation and diplomacy by other countries in the Middle East, and the uncertainty about how this will go. And really the great fear that Lindsay and Craig may somehow be used as pawns in whatever happens next. They're accused of being spies for Israel, allegations that they completely refute. The UK government tonight saying that it's trying to address this directly with the Iranian authorities. But of course, for Lindsay, as the personal toll illustrated there in our conversation shows, she's desperate to be home, and not alone, but home with her husband, Craig, as well.